Hey guys, welcome back to Critical Flick. Today I'll be reviewing Maxxxine. So Maxxxine is the third installment in Ty West's X franchise. Starting with the movie X, then we had Pearl a couple years ago, and Maxxxine kind of capping the whole thing off. This movie picks up after the events of X, and it's following Maxxxine Minx, who we saw in the X film, who is the professional adult actress, and this time she's trying to break her way into Hollywood, kind of trying to make a name for herself as a mainstream actress. Speaking of Maxxxine, Mia Goth is fantastic in this film. Again, she did such a good job in Pearl. She's pretty good in X as well, but I do like that she followed up that really phenomenal performance with another really good one. She plays this kind of no-nonsense woman who can take on anybody. She's not afraid of anything. She knows what she wants, and she has the drive to get there. I've seen from the director that she's kind of a parallel to Pearl. While obviously they're played by the same actress and they look identical, they kind of lived parallel lives that went in different directions, as you'll see in this movie if you check it out. And this movie just really oozes 1980s. It does a really good job of capturing kind of that neon-soaked hairspray style of 1980s Hollywood. I really did love the production design of this film. It does kind of wade into maybe a little bit of style over substance at times, but it's definitely a joy to check out if you're a fan of kind of 80s slashers and that kind of moment in Hollywood. One of the things that kind of holds the movie back for me just a little bit is the way that it's structured. We kind of have two main stories going on in this with a couple of subplots beneath, and I think it gets kind of muddled at times, and I think by the end of the film it hurts kind of the big reveal. This movie does have a big twist of what's going on. It doesn't really feel like it fully hits because it doesn't really dive in to the aspects of what's happening with the twist, in my opinion. I like kind of clever twists where it's like, oh, I should have known that all along. But I felt like when I was watching this, there's no way you could have known that's where this was going. Jumping into kind of the two main plots of the film, the first one, like I'd mentioned, is kind of Maxxxine trying to become a mainstream actress and her struggle to do that. The second plot of this movie follows two detectives that are trying to capture the Night Stalker killer that's happening during the same time. And that plays kind of a misdirection at times, and it was kind of strange that it focuses on the Night Stalker, but then it kind of moves into a different direction by the end of the story. So I was wondering if that is just there as a misdirection. And I'm not going to lie, I really did kind of enjoy the detective scenes in the film almost more than when Maxxine's on the screen, because it really reminded me of those gritty 80s cop dramas, so I loved that aspect. This definitely feels like a love letter to films from the 1980s, and I really enjoy that he added those aspects into it. When it comes to the supporting characters in this film, I felt like they didn't really have a lot of screen time. It was interesting when I'm watching the marketing for this, they really pushed the fact that Halsey's in this movie, and she's barely in the movie. If you're a big fan of Halsey, you might be a little disappointed that she really has almost like really one scene where she's talking and one very small brief scene after that. So it was interesting they marketed that way. Also, Lily Collins is in this movie for a very brief amount of time. A lot of the supporting characters don't get a ton of screen time. It focuses mainly on Maxxxine, a little bit on the detectives, and then also on her best friend. And then also moving underneath kind of these two subplots is you have Kevin Bacon's character. He's a private detective who's tracking down Maxxxine, and he somehow has information about her past and the events of the movie X. She's kind of using them against her. It'll come full circle by the end of the film, and I did like the moments he came on screen because he is fully hamming it up. He's definitely having a good time playing this character, and I'm a big fan of Kevin Bacon, so it's nice seeing him have a role he can really kind of chew on a little bit more. And I think some of the back and forth between him and Maxxxine were some of the better moments in the film. And like the other films in this franchise, it does not shy away from showing you gory and graphic moments. There is a scene involving someone trying to mug Maxxxine fairly early on in the film where he really went for it, and I was squirming in my seat because of what happened. If you're a guy and you watched it, you're someone who can understand those experiences. It's a rough watch in that one moment. And there's a few other scenes involving some brutal kills. So if you're here for that, you'll definitely get that kind of 80s slasher and what you've come to expect from this director with his previous work. I will say the movie kind of wades into the cheesy elements a little bit more than it did in the previous two films. I will say, as far as ranking them for me, I do think that this one is slightly better than X in my opinion. I think Pearl is still much better. I think her performance is fantastic. I think it's incredibly original. This one feels like I said, it's like an homage and kind of like a hodgepodge of 80s Hollywood, which is fun to watch, but I just kind of love the originality of the second film. And I don't feel like this one moves the story enough in a direction that, even not that it warrants being made. I think it's great that it was made. It just doesn't really feel like it moves any of the narrative along in a way that's interesting, in my opinion. And like I said, I think that has a lot to do with having the multiple subplots, having a more complex story than the previous two films. It kind of feels muddled at times, at least for me. So overall, if I were to rate Maxxxine, I would give it a 6.5 out of 10. Like I said, I think it's better than the first film. I don't think, like I said, it reaches the levels of Pearl. And the really frustrating thing about it is kind of the structure of it and the way that the story doesn't feel like it fully capitalizes on what it built up in the previous two films. We have flashbacks to X where you feel like there's going to be more of a connection, and maybe it is that almost cosmic connection between Pearl and Maxxxine, but it never feels like it's fully capitalized. And like I said, the twist at the end doesn't feel earned and doesn't feel as clever as it could have been. There's some really shining moments in this movie. Like I said, there's great style to it, great performances, and if you're a fan of this franchise, I think you'll be mostly satisfied. So if you end up checking out Maxxxine, let me know what you thought about it. I love to hear people's opinions. Let me know if you liked it more than me. Let me know if you liked it less and how it ranks in the franchise for you. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and see you guys next time.